Oh my god, I am so relieved to be reporting. 2 months later, I still have fish. Hey folks, after the immense difficulties I've had keeping any fish alive in here, I am so relieved and glad to say that as of today, it has been 2 months that these fishies have been in here and they're happy and healthy. And they get to have names now. I've been disallowed by my husband to name any more fish until I had a couple that would actually live. So the last clown that was named was Shaggy Two Dope. So one of these guys, the little one, is called Shaggy Two Dope Too Furious now, and the bigger one is Violent J, because I have myself an insane clown posse.
Water, fire, air, and dirt. Fucking magnets, how do they work?
And it is kind of a miracle that they're still alive, to be honest, because I have not had a very smooth time the last couple of months. The back 3 chambers of the tank, which are intended to be filtering stuff, like I got a skimmer, I've got filter media, started to develop some white slime because I was carbon dosing a little too heavily, and that slime was clogging up the back chambers, which left the return chamber, the final chamber, to start to empty. And when that started to empty, my auto top-off started to kick on, and because it thought that my water level was dangerously low. It thought that too much water had evaporated, so it's trying to fill in more water. But the water that it fills in is fresh water because all of the salt that's left over in evaporation stays in the tank. So you don't want to have salt water in your auto top-off reservoir. So all of this fresh water in my auto top-off reservoir started getting pumped into my tank, and it was a lot. Like the tank level was getting really, really high. It was bad. So I had to do like emergency water changes of trying to get out some of that water so that there would be some flow. You see the water is breaking against this. This agitation of the water is causing a gas exchange so that oxygen is getting into the water. So it was really important for me to make sure that that gas exchange was happening, and with the amount of water that was up here, the return wasn't getting any kind of agitation to the surface. So I had to do like this emergency water, getting out of it. And like it wasn't even a water change, it was just a water bilge, I guess. The upshot of all this, though, is that my salinity started to drop really fast. Like, it went from 1.026 to 1.023-ish, and that sudden shift is kind of dangerous for everybody involved. And there was an added complication here because if you've watched my previous videos, you know that I use Kalkwasser in my auto top-off. And Kalkwasser is just a whole lot of alkalinity and calcium that can dramatically change the pH and all the alkalinity stuff that is vital for the health of the corals. So fortunately, I'm not doing a lot of calc, but it was still more alkalinity into the tank than the tank was prepared for. And an immediate consequence of that was that the acropora that came in on the same shipment with the fish died, like, immediately. It just immediately fizzled out on me. There's a couple of ways that corals can die. There's slow tissue necrosis and rapid tissue necrosis. And this was the rapidest tissue necrosis I've witnessed. Like, I'd seen a Xylophora and a Cereatopora die from slow tissue necrosis. The acropora went into rapid tissue necrosis, where all of the fine flesh of the critter just started peeling away, and all that was left was a skeleton. That was really shitty to just watch. But it was a serious, like, wake-up call for me. Like, I thought I was doing everything right. Like, I thought that I had a very stable level of alkalinity and calcium and all the other stuff before putting the acropora in there, because I didn't want to watch acropora dying in my tank. Like this, if you've seen Chasing Coral, all the coral you're seeing dying were acropora. Okay, I've seen Chasing Coral. I don't want to watch any more acropora dying, and to see that was just a gut punch, because it was my fault. Like, I screwed up on the carbon dosing, which caused the slime buildup, which caused the filtering stuff to get all clogged up, which caused the auto top off to dump a whole bunch of fresh water with way too much alkalinity into the tank. And the area that I fucked up in specifically is that I took the internet's word for things again. Like, God damn it, I need to stop listening to the internet. The internet is so wrong on so many things in this hobby. One of the things that they say is that when you're switching from vinegar as your carbon source to alcohol as your carbon source, that the alcohol is 8 times stronger than the vinegar. So you need to change your calculation and reduce the carbon dose by, divided by 8. You should have the same amount of carbon. Vodka is like way more carbon than vinegar, apparently, because the amount of slime that had built up back there in such a short amount of time indicates that there was a hell of a lot more carbon than the vinegar, because I didn't have this problem with the vinegar dosing. It happened after I switched to vodka dosing. So I've scaled that back a bunch, but not before I had a second occurrence of this. Like the first time it happened, I'm freaking out. I'm doing the trying to get everything leveled out, and then as soon as things had calmed down, I did a regular water change. But I took my water change hose and really cleaned out the back. So I thought that I had solved the problem, but I didn't change the vodka dose because I didn't at the time acknowledge that that was the problem. So I did have another incident where it starts to overflow. Now, fortunately, in both of these cases, I've been here, I saw it. It did not overflow and ruin anything in here. But, oh my God, that is terrifying as hell to see the water, all the salt water suddenly trying to get out of the tank. So I had to do another batch of, bilging, and the result of this second freshwater injection into the system dropped my salinity down to 1.022. Like, it was a high 1.022, but that's well below. Like, 1.023 is like the minimum you want for a saltwater tank. Now I'm getting into like brackish, like that really scared the hell out of me. Unfortunately, prior to this, I'd had time to just slowly bring up the level, so it wasn't at a 1.023 when the second injection of fresh water came in. It was at around 1.024, so it would have gotten really low if I hadn't been slowly increasing that again. But this second dip in the salinity and in huge growth of alkalinity caused now more coral to start suffering difficulties, including the once beautiful rainbow acropora, which showed some pretty big chunks of bleaching. And you can see that in where the algae is growing now. That was just dead, like it died off. But the whole coral didn't seem to die off. It seems to be surviving, certainly not thriving. I'm keeping a very close eye on it. I'm worried that the front half of it is starting to bleach now too. And the green Montipora capricornis has also shown some signs of bleaching, like it's kind of lost its green color, and it's got algae growing in areas where it clearly bleached out. But the polyps are still coming out, so I'm hopeful in both of these cases that the corals have a chance to survive. I'm not seeing any kind of tissue necrosis where it's continuing to die out in that bleached region. The Stellata Montipora, however, is doing great. I have been increasing the light over, well, I was increasing the light, and now it's at a point where everything seems to be pretty happy. But as soon as I hit like around 90% on the Kessel A80, the Montipora stellata became super happy, and it's got these just fluffed out polyps. Like, it is insane polyp extension. I've never seen it this happy. And there's a noticeable sort of yellow in the center of the pulp, which is quite unique. Like, I've never seen that on any other coral on anybody else's videos. So I'm very excited to see this one. I really hope that this is going to grow, because it's really cool to see all these fluffy, bouncy polyps. Unfortunately, my this water chemistry mess claimed the Leptocerus that was still on a plug in the back, and the Leptocerus frag that had broken off of that plug is not looking great. It's still alive. You can sort of make out the green mouths on that, But there's all kinds of algae growing all over it. It looks like it started to suffer some amount of die-off, but it's not necrosing. It doesn't seem to be. Letting that do its thing. Hopefully it'll recover. Fortunately, everything else seems to be fine, though. The Duncans are doing great. In fact, the smaller of the two Duncans is now starting to show some color, which is great. Like when I got it, it had lost all of its zooxanthellae, so it had no color. It was just this bland pink thing, and now it's starting to get a little bit of purple and a lot of green in the mouth area, so that's really cool. I love seeing this next to my desk here because it's really cool to see that splash of color moving around. And the clowns have switched who is hosting this Duncan now. The more aggressive, assertive, larger one that's going to be a female, Violent J, is now the Duncan resident, tenant, having chased off the smaller one. It's confusing to use gendered pronouns with clownfish. Right now he's a he, so he was a lot more aggressive to the actual Duncan. Like the smaller one had been very gently kind of rolling around in it, but the first couple of days that Violent J had been in the Duncan, he was really kind of pummeling it to make it stop trying to grab him, because the Duncan doesn't know what's going on. He's just grabbing at this thing that he assumes is food in his mouth, so he's trying to grab at it. So Violent J kept on like kind of hammering at him, like not hard, but he was forcefully kind of pushing him back, saying, "Hey, look, you are not going to grab me anymore." And now the Duncan does not try to grab at him anymore, so he can just kind of flop in it and almost like sleep in it. It's interesting to see that symbiosis that's happening. That's very non-consensual. This Duncan is thinking, "Food, why are you not getting in my mouth?" And the clown is thinking, "An enemy, why are you trying to eat me?" Because he doesn't know he's dealing with a Duncan. It's interesting to see this very weird play of events, but they're really cute together, so I'm very happy to see that. I'm insanely grateful to have fish that are behaving in this way, because a lot of people I know have clowns that will not host anything or will host stupid things like their power heads. So I know how lucky I am. I'm absolutely grateful to have this opportunity to see this. It's really cool. The rest of the corals seem to be doing fine, but they're not showing a lot of growth, and I'm also not seeing any coralline on the rocks or the back or anything, which isn't good. Like coralline is an indicator that says that your tank has matured, and my tank is now 6 months old and it isn't showing that, so that's a bad sign. It could be just a result of the fluctuating chemistry that happened from the freshwater dumps, but I am a little worried that I'm not seeing any of that coralline. So I'm not going to put any new coral in here. Like I'm not going to replace the acropora. I'm not going to put anything else new in here until I see some coralline starting to develop on the rocks, because that will be a good indicator that things have stabilized, like for real, and the tank is getting its shit together. Like I've been super busy this month, but I am staying on top of my water tests. Like it is critical. Like I want to give this tank every opportunity to mature on its own, get the water chemistry all sorted out, especially after these two hiccups that this chemistry has had. So I'm staying on top of that. Like I test my alkalinity at least every other day. I'm super serious about like getting that as stable as possible, because that has so many implications across the whole board. So if I can keep that stable, and I'm also making sure that the tank's not getting dirty with all kinds of phosphates and nitrates, I'm hopeful that it's just going to keep going on, and like I'll bring up the salinity slowly, and everything is going to be peachy, but it continues to be a struggle. I'm not nearly as optimistic as I was when I was throwing in acropora and fish into here, because now I've had that experience of unforeseen things going completely awry on me. But I remain really enthusiastic about this as a hobby. It is so great to have this right next to my desk all day. Like, it's just, I've been doing a lot of coding and stuff lately, and it can be stressful to be debugging and things like that. And it doesn't matter what's going on in my day. I can look over to my side and I see this gorgeous life bubbling around and happy and doing things, and that is like an instant reset button on my stress level. So I'm super happy to have this despite all the setbacks, despite all the heartache of watching corals dying. I'm still really engaged in this, so I'm going to continue these videos. I'm probably not going to be able to keep them up on a monthly basis. I had to skip December altogether. Barely got this one together. I'm just super busy for the first 6 months of this year, so I'm going to get them done when I can and when I have something to show. Until then, take it easy, folks.